Spellcasting in tabletop roleplay games should feel exciting and also should feel different from other spellcasting classes. And I'm not just talking about the flavor. All the spellcasters can have different flavor of where their magics come from, lore stuff, sure. I'm talking about mechanically feel different even when you cast the same spell. Because I don't think it should be on the players to have to come up with cool ways of flavor that they add to how they describe the way they cast the spell, of how a wizard casts fireball looking through a book, or a sorcerer magic from fire swirls around them and coalesce, all that type of stuff. I'm not talking about the descriptions of your spells. I'm talking about if you put every spellcaster in a line, told them all to cast fireball, they should all mechanically function a little bit different. At least that's my philosophy. And before I get ahead of myself, hello there. I'm the Dungeon Coach, creator of DC20, and in DC20, this was a huge design goal of mine, to be able to create all the spellcasting classes with a unique flavor and unique mechanics to all of them. So in this video, we're going over what innovative direction and game design type of ideas that we threw into DC20 to be able to really bring these spellcasters alive. And this also double dips as a sneak peek showcase of the 0.7 alpha, because in that alpha, every single class got a rework, got an update, got some polish, and oh my gosh, are all the classes super good right now. And when I say good, they feel good. They mechanically make sense. They accomplish a class fantasy. They feel different from one another. I could go on. And if anything in this video I talk about DC20 gets you a little bit excited or curious, I have other videos on the channel as well. But 1 week from today, the Kickstarter for DC20 goes live. That's crazy to say. I'm going to be doing a live launch party. It's June 4th, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm doing a launch party at the hour leading up to it beforehand. It's going to be huge. It's huge for DC20 and the community and all the stuff that it means for the game, but it's also huge for you because the Kickstarter, especially in the first 3 days, there's an early bird bonuses that you get. If you join the first 3 days, you get a bunch of stuff for free. And the first 2 stretch goals of the entire project are also free content for everyone. This whole thing was made possible by the community, you guys. I would not have been able to stop and be able to do this full time, of stopping and creating this game to get it to the spot where it's at, to be able to get to launch. We did it. We got to launch. And now we just get to see how high that rocket goes. So I cannot wait for the launch of the Kickstarter. Link for that will be down in the description. You can pick it up for yourself, back and support at whatever level you're thinking. It's gonna be big. So now let's get into each of these 6 classes. There are 6 spellcasting classes in the core rules of DC20. I'm gonna go over each of the 6 as far as mechanically, not flavor-wise. You can always do this flavor-wise, and as a little disclaimer here too, you can also mix and match flavor for some really cool things. I might throw that at the end of the video. There will be timestamps down below for each of the different classes along the way here, and next week's video is gonna get into all the different changelog for what else is coming in the 0.7 update. Wizards get 2 things right off the bat at level 1 to make them feel like a wizard and cast spells like a wizard. First thing is Spell School Initiate. You're going to be able to choose one spell school, and out of all the different spell schools in the game, you're going to be able to choose a spell school, and then whenever you cast a spell from that school, you're going to be able to reduce its mana cost by 1. That does 2 really cool things. It lets wizards be able to kind of pick a little bit of a specialization. This is not picking a subclass. And also, as a heads up, wizard subclasses aren't just going to be all of the different spell schools. It's going to be a bit more cooler direction than that. The wizard's going to have a bit more fun in that way. But this is going to let you be able to choose a type of magic, a spell school, to be able to specialize in a little bit and get a little mana reduction bonus every time you cast those spells, because you're so dang good at casting that type of spell. And if you're not familiar with DC20, this is something we do here a lot, is whenever you use a feature, you can use it once per long rest, but you reset that ability. The ability comes back online in combat, because I really truly believe in the spirit of an adrenaline rush in combat. Oh, my back's against the wall. Here we go. So you can use it once per long rest, sure. But then once combat hits, let's go. Second thing they get is Arcane Sigil, super flavorful thing of a wizard to be able to put runes on the ground. They put a rune on the ground, and while standing in this rune, they gain advantage on spells that they cast of the declared type. And what I mean by that is you're able to, as soon as you put the sigil on the ground, you can choose a spell tag, a spell school, and you can choose fire. And all fire spells have advantage while you're standing in there, whether it's enemies, allies, whatever. You could choose the Restoration School, put the sigil on the ground, run across the battlefield, let the cleric come over, stand on it. And the wizards are also now able to teleport those sigils around the battlefield to be underneath themselves. So if they move somewhere and they want to bring it to them, boom. Now, level 2, you level up, and now there's still more coming at you, because in DC20, the first 2 levels, I want you to be able to have everything to feel like your class and feel the class fantasy that what you're going for. And then at 3rd level, everybody picks their subclasses. That's a whole nother conversation. So at level 2, you get a prepared spell. And what this is, I think it's the It's truly the best version of the concept of prepared spells that I've seen before. It doesn't add a whole bunch of weird moments of like, oh, prepare spells from a list and then you choose them and then now you're locked into those, sorry, and then combat's happening and you're like, ah. So prepared spells, all it means is out of all the spells you know, you just really study up on one of them. You lock one of them in real good. You read over your books. You make sure you get all the stuff right for them, all the intricacies of them. You lock that spell in your head real good, and you're better at casting it. It's fresh on your mind. You're able to do mana limit break, and you're familiar with wizards in DC20 before. You'll know what this is when you cast the spell, the other feature lets you be able to reduce the mana cost by 1. Now you're able to increase how much mana you can spend on spells. In DC20, you're only allowed to spend an amount of mana on a spell equal to your combat mastery, which is half your level. So if you're level 1, you can only spend 1 mana on a spell. That's it, right? You're capped in that way. But wizards who have really studied this spell specifically, they are able to push that one beyond, and they go a little further, push the spell more, and be able to do more with the spell, right? And you're able to only do this once per long rest, resets on a combat. And another cool little almost flavor thing here is if you are casting the spell and someone tries to stop you and spell duel your spell, they have disadvantage on their spell check because you're just so dang good at casting this spell, nobody's stopping you. And then there's arcane points. You get 2 arcane points. It's really simple. You're able to mess with your arcane sigil a little bit and be able to spend and add and enhance your arcane sigils in some ways. Or you can spend them towards that spell school that you chose earlier. And you can spend them just like mana, but only for that spell school. Very wizardy to get you a little of flexibility within that school and within your sigil. So there's a wizard. That's what I'm talking about. And that's the feel that I'm trying to get across here. I feel like you will feel like a wizard whenever you play this mechanically. So then you're just naturally going to be able to role play and feel like a wizard because the mechanics are already helping you feel like a wizard. Imagine taking it one step further and actually adding to the flavor and talking about spell books, or talking about maybe you don't even have your spell books on your hip. Maybe you cast spells with a wand. Make your character your own flavor-wise, sure, run with that, but at least the mechanics are the foundation that supports you. But now the whole point of this whole conversation of how do spellcasters, how are they different from one and the next? Sorcerer is going to be the next one we talk about here. And a lot of times people are like, oh, well, let's just get rid of the sorcerer. What's the difference? And I think one of the big things in DC20, these 6 classes are here for a reason, and that reason is because each of them have where their magic comes from. That's why they each hold their ground in the core rule book of DC20. Wizards, they learned it, all that kind of stuff. Y'all know where all these different magics come from. Sorcerers, it's in their blood. They've had some sort of magic happen to them, and now their literal body is magic. And then we have warlocks that made a deal with an entity in a pact sort of contract type of way. And then there's clerics who make a relationship with the deity and from a serving follower type of way. Druids are connected to the world and the planes and the nature around us, and they draw their energy and power from it. And bards' magic comes from people, comes from themselves, comes from emotions, emotionality, artistic expression. That's why each of those 6 classes exist as they are. And then now it's how do we get across the flavor and feel and class fantasy of each of those. Let's talk about Sorcerer. Now, the Sorcerer starts off with 1 less spell known. They actually do have 1 less spell known than usual, but trust me, you'll see what they get made up for it, right? They also, as far as their spell list goes, I didn't talk about this with the Wizard. The Wizard spell list, you have the Arcane spell list and no other restrictions. There you go. The Sorcerer can choose what spell list they want. They're the only ones that get to choose what spell list they want. Where does your magic come from? Are you an angel born, divine, whatever? Then yeah, go ahead, pick the divine spell list. There you go. So what do you get level 1? Innate power. This is a new thing for sorcerers, is your maximum mana increases by 1. You get 1 more mana because sorcerers should have the most mana. They are magic themselves, right? And then also once per long rest, you can use 1 mana in spell enhancement. So in DC20 spell enhancements, if you cast a spell, you can add 1 mana and enhance it. Add 2 mana, 3, 4, 5. You can add more mana to spells to get more effects. So sorcerers can, once per long rest, spend 1 NP for free to do a spell enhancement. Now, this does have to follow the mana spend limit still. So at first, it's going to be a little bit more limited, and you're only going to be able to use this on cantrips, because cantrips cost 0 mana, and then you could use this to enhance them. And then once you get to level 3, now your mana spend limit is 2, and now you could cast a level 1 spell, a 1 mana cost spell, and enhance it for free. not costing any mana. But you also get to choose your sorceress origin. Are you have intuitive magic and you just have so much magic running through you, you know more magic. You get an additional spell, an additional cantrip, more magic. Or are you more resilient magic and you are just so, it's part of you and it makes you solid and strong. You have advantage on concentration checks. That's straight up just across the board there for the rest of this this character, advantage on concentration checks. And then there's my personal favorite, if you know anything about me, is unstable magic, aka wild magic. Yes, you're going to be able to get a choice to choose to take a step into wild magic just a little bit. This is not going to be as much wild magic as a subclass would give you, and there will be a wild magic subclass, don't worry. But yes, you're going to be able to, on a critical fail or critical success, whenever you make a spell check. On the extreme ends, only when you roll a natural 1 or a natural 20, you get to roll on this table right here, and it gets a little crazy. And also, you gain advantage on the next spell check you make. Tapping into that, why do you have a little bit more magic flowing through you? It's going to be fun. Speaking of fun magic flowing through you, Overload Magic is an iconic, at this point, sorcerer ability now for DC20. You overload yourself. You push your body and magic to the limits. You gain +5 on every single spell check you make. That's insane. But you immediately start to go crazy and lose exhaustion. You are pushing yourself to the limit and you start to gain levels of exhaustion. You have to make a save and you're fighting, your body's fighting for it, and you could be gain levels of exhaustion very quickly, or maybe if you make your saves, maybe you hold it off for long enough, but you're playing with it. It's a lot of risk and reward, but man, is it fun. And man, does it feel like a sorcerer. And I can't tell you how many times, how many crazy cool moments have come from the description that someone gives of what looks like when they overload. Lightning crackling off their bodies, being engulfed in flames. Oh, one of the craziest moments I can think of is a divine soul sorcerer, like a healer of the group, had overloaded magic to be able to heal someone. So they are glowing with the divine light, and they described from their deity, from where they come from. They're just glowing with all this magic, shoot off a huge heal somebody massively as they're just exhausting themselves. So epic. Then at level 2, Font of Magic is a vitality bonus. Now, this is interesting because sorcerers, it's part of their body. Their magic is in their blood. So how can we get that across mechanically? Rest points. If you're familiar in D&D, it's called hit dice. In DC20, it's called rest points. You have a number of rest points equal to your level. And for sorcerers, it's plus your prime modifier. So that's going to be at level 1, you have 4 rest points. Now, you're supposed to use these rest points to heal yourself. So during short rest, long rest, etc., you're able to heal yourself, right? And every time you spend them, you heal yourself for 2 points, right? Simple. But sorcerers, they have magic in their blood. Instead of using this type of, recovery, endurance type of situation, they can tap into that and turn it into magic instead. So you can use rest points in place of mana points when you do spell enhancements. Super Sorcerer, love it. This is essentially sorcery points, if you are familiar with that, but this is the DC20 version of it, which I really think takes it to the next level. Then there's meta magic, and with sorcerers, you gain 2 choices of meta magic. There are 5 different options here. You get to pick 2, and you're now able to use the spell enhancements. These also don't follow the mana spend limit. So if you're only at level 1, you're only able to cast a spell that's 1 mana. You could, if you use these, you could break that rule technically, because these don't count against your mana spend limit. So you can cast this and add a little bit more oomph to it. And there's your sorcerer. That's what I'm talking about here. If you have a wizard and a sorcerer standing right next to each other, all they are going to do is cast fireball. It would already look so different. The wizard would put a sigil on the ground, say fire. A sigil of flames erupts on the ground around them as they stand on it. Maybe fireball was the prepared spell that they had because they love casting it so much, right? And so now that's their prepared spell, and they chose destruction as their school of magic, and so now they have this very perfectly built fireball, and they have studied this spell so well, so they're going to reduce the mana cost of it by 1, and at the same time pump the spell to be able to increase the mana spend limit by more as they stand on their sigil and cast fireball. I just got chills. Meanwhile, the sorcerer, doing the same dang thing, casting fireball, they are standing there. They have all this magic flowing through them. They're unstable, right? I'm just going to choose that for my example. They overload themselves and they engulf, their whole body engulfs in flames as they prepare to cast this fireball, gaining +5 to all spell checks, right? But they're going to gain exhaustion possibly. They got to hurry. They cast the spell and use a rest point to be able to enhance it and push it even further. They have meta magic and they want to use quicken spell to shoot it off even faster, pushing their body to the limits as they sculpt the magic that they fire across the battlefield. Wow. So yes, they just both cast fireball, But wow, was that a different journey just to even describe to you. Now you get the idea of what makes me so excited about this whole thing and how spellcasting in DC20, it's been so cool to hear the stories you guys tell and see it all play out. So we're the Warlock. Warlocks have the standard amount of spellcasting. Everything's normal here, right? But Warlocks, how their spell list works is you actually get to choose 4 spell schools. You have access to all the spell list, every single spell list. You just get to pick 4 spell schools. You pick your 4 spell schools, and then that's the only thing you have access to. I think it's really interesting for the Warlock, and you can really base that off of that type of flavor of your character, of what kind of thing, where's my patron come from, who do I want to, all that kind of stuff. So level 1, you get 2 things, and the fantasy I'm trying to get across here is the connection with your patron. 1, you're going to get a pact boon. We'll talk about that in a second, but you have a sacrificial bond. This connection to your patron is to your soul. It's to your body. It's to your blood. It's like who you are. This contract that you agreed to them, this pact that's intertwined with you, it is you. So they have access to you, your blood, your soul, your life essence, everything. So you are able to use that your own life essence to be able to tap into the same magics that your patrons grant you in all this type of ways as well. So when you make an attack, you can spend your own health to increase the damage you deal by 1. Or in the opposite way, if you want to heal someone, you can, whenever you produce an effect that heals someone, you can spend your own health to give it to your allies. It goes both ways. And if you want to keep tapping into this thing, you can spend the health to be able to give yourself advantage on the spell you cast or an attack you make, even just with a weapon. And speaking of weapons, we have a pact boon. This is a little bit more flavor. This is not a subclass again, but in DC20, you don't get subclasses till 3rd level. This is a great solution for what kind of pact do you have going on here? You don't have to like establish it and lock it into stone, a 3rd level type situation. But what kind of pact are you wanting for? Do you want a pact weapon? Do you want pact armor? Yes. Now, what I've done here with this mechanic is I did not want it to just be some amorphous magical weapon. You get to actually take a physically existing item in the world, choose it. I'm going to choose this DC20 action tracker. And this now becomes your pack weapon. Now I can vanish it into an alternate dimension, an alternate little pocket dimension or whatever, and I can summon it to my hand whenever I want. Same thing with the armor. So if you find a really cool magic item, the Warlock that chose pact weapon isn't left out in the cold because, oh, sorry, I have to use this magic weapon that I summoned myself. No, you can use the cool weapons and armors and stuff you find. As soon as you find it, you take it, now it's yours, and you turn it into your pact weapon. Same thing with pact armor. When it comes to armor, you also gain other bonuses as well. I'm not trying to go through each of the exact mechanics of this. That's also why I have it on the screen over here, right? But pact armor works the same way. You find a new cool piece of armor, you bond with it, and now you can summon it onto yourself and off yourself, also increasing your mystical defense and mystical damage reduction as well, which is one of the only times in the level 1 that you can do that. Pact Cantrip and Pact Familiar are also 2 other options. There's 4 total options here. Pact Cantrip is the fantasy of the Warlock being able to manipulate magics on that low level, that 0 mana cost spells that you're much better at. Deal 1 more damage to bloody targets because they're closer to dying, which amplifies your power there, increasing spells range by just a little bit, and once per round, you can give yourself advantage on that specific chosen pact cantrip. But in that same way, you're not locked into the one specific cantrip that you only can cast over and over. You can change it up and you can be able to switch it around on long rests. And then pact familiar, you're gonna be able to have a little friend, little imp, little however you want to describe it, up on your shoulder. You're gonna be able to have a pact familiar able to summon and has a little bit stronger and works a little bit better than your standard familiar. Then at level 2, we have life tap and life drain. If you're familiar with DC20, you might have noticed the sorcerer no longer has spell break at level 2. How it worked is for the cost of your own health, you were able to cast spells with no mana. But taking a big step back, cast spells with your health, that's a warlock thing. So here we go, life tap, which is essentially spell break. If it looks familiar, that's why. So life tap, you can attempt to cast a spell without spending mana. Ooh, interesting. You take damage equal to the mana cost of what you're missing out on here, right? And you have to make a check for it and all that kind of stuff. But you're able to dig so deep into that soul of yours that you got a little connection with that patron and cast magic with your own life force. And then with all this damage you're taking and dealing to yourself, you got to heal yourself up some. So life drain lets you do that. Is you can deal damage to bloody creatures. So when you deal damage to a bloody creature, you can spend a rest point to heal yourself. Normally you can only spend rest points while resting. This lets you be able to do that in combat just a little bit if you need to. And when creatures finally you've vanquished creatures in the name of your patron, for your patron, on the cause and goals towards helping your patron, when creatures die, you're able to heal yourself for 2 hit points. So warlocks aren't going to just be constantly just hurting themselves and slowly dying. They'll be able to help themselves out a bit. And now the perfect segue from warlock is cleric, because in DC20 I wanted to take a little different approach with the cleric. Clerics aren't just inherently good. Goody two shoes cleric, yay, serving a holy deity, yay, they're all healers, yay. No. You'll see what I'm talking about. Let's get into cleric. Cleric's normal standard setup and everything, and just like wizards only can access the arcane spell list, clerics can only access the divine spell list, and spoiler alert, druids can only access the primal spell list. But now, what do they get at level 1? Level 1, you get your cleric order, and I love this for the cleric. You are able to, first of all, you choose a divine damage type, radiant or umbral. If you're not familiar with that, it's the positive type of holy light, radiant stuff, light damage, and then there's umbral, darkness, soul eating, whatever damage. And when you choose a cleric, you get to pick which one of those 2 damage types is your divine damage type. There'll be certain other times whenever you deal your divine damage, and that's going to, based on your choice, be radiant or umbral. And you're also able to, anytime you cast a spell that is a divine spell, you're able to change that damage type to whatever it is, to whatever your chosen divine damage type is. So yes, if you choose a spell that's called like Death Blast or something that shoots out unholy energy in all directions around you, I want to pick that spell, but I chose a cleric and it doesn't feel right for my holy cleric of, whatever to be doing that. Well, take it, pick it up, rename it. I mean, you might not want to call it Death Blast, but you can call it Holy Blast. And then now you, because of your divine damage type, let's say you chose Radiant, you can change that damage type to Radiant. And you also get a sacred role, Priest, Scribe, or Templar. Priest hits upon that healing aspect. It lets you be able to heal a little bit better. Whenever you cast a spell that heals, you can restore another 1 hit point to another creature within 1 space of you, including yourself. So if you heal somebody else, there's just that little bit of leftover healing magic that you're connected to, and you're able to pass it around, spread the love. And then there's the scribe. You got the studious cleric who really learns about things. They can have 1 more spell and 2 more skill points spent on intelligence stuff. And then there's the Templar, which I just love that name. You gain mastery with heavy weapons, heavy shields, heavy armor. Bring you 1 step closer to a paladin if that's what kind of something you're thinking about. But yeah, we'll get into that. That's a whole now. Whoa. Divine Blessing is maybe one of the most flavorful things as far as any of this stuff I'm talking about, because it really combines the flavor and mechanics in one. Divine Blessing, you are basically able to reach out to your god, spend an action point, spend a mana point, and you are able to ask for some sort of blessing that they give you. Now, they give you this blessing, and then it's your choice on when and how you use it. You can ask for destruction, guidance, restoration, and then once you have this, you can attach this almost like a little rider effect onto a spell you cast. So for example, if I wanted to pray for restoration, right? I'm going to get a blessing of restoration. So I would do this action point, mana point. I now have a blessing of restoration, right? Nothing happens yet. And then now let's say, maybe it's the same turn, maybe it's the next turn or whatever. I still have this. And then I want to cast the bless spell, which gives a D4 to some allies and stuff. And normally the bless spell does not heal. But since I have this little blessing of restoration here, I choose to cast the bless spell. It affects that ally, and myself or whatever. And then I can choose to, on a spell, apply this to one of those creatures. And now that friend that got hurt last turn, they're also not only going to get the bless spell, but they also get that +3 healing. So you're really able to start getting creative and flexible with your spellcasting here as a cleric, reaching out and getting some blessings from that deity you serve. Now we level up to level 2. And this is just really cool. The flavor really keeps kicking in. 10 out of 10 on a cleric here. Divine Intervention. Yes, it's a Divine Intervention at level 1. You can call out to your god. It's not going to be huge. Trust me. Higher levels Divine Intervention. Oh yeah, just buckle up. But this is a replenishment, a refreshment from your god, a benefit, a boost, right? It is a boon of healing and a boon of mana, just a little bit of refill, just a little filling you up just a little bit here. And it's 3 action points. It's the first 3 action point thing in DC20. But you gain healing pool equal to twice your prime modifier. So your prime modifier is 3 at level 1, so that gives you 6 points of healing, and you can spread that out however you want to your allies and you gain a bonus of mana equal to that prime modifier again. So you get 3 mana back for using this thing. So this is just a little bit of a replenishment, a connection to reach out, ask that deity of yours to be able to fill you back up just a little bit. And then there's Channel Divinity. We're all familiar with this, and you have an undead targeting Channel Divinity, which can stun them, which is a very powerful condition. And then there's also a divine version of this Channel Divinity, which you can choose to target Celestials and Fiends, dealing damage, intimidating them. There you go. So there's the Cleric, and that really feels very much like a Cleric. So now let's have this Cleric and Warlock cast Fireball, or let's just call it like Death Ball or whatever. It's a shadowy version of that, since Fireball is not a divine spell. So anyway, they're casting this Death Ball situation. The Warlock is going to be able to push themselves, use their own life essence to boost and empower this ball of magic. While the Cleric might be able to reach out beforehand, reach out for some sort of guidance and some sort of, they pray for destruction, and then now they have this deal even more damage. And even change the damage type over to Radiant. Whoa. Let's keep this thing going with Druid now. Druids have a connection to nature itself. Nature being plants, the world around animals, the actual plane itself. So the big 3 class fantasies, Druids have normal magic right here, and like I already said, they have their primal spell list situation. The 3 big class fantasies I wanted to hit here is animals, being able to shapeshift into animals. I think that's important. There was a version of the Druid that originally tried to do that without that, but nope, it's staying. Nature, plants, being able to manipulate and use the nature itself. Create nature around you is another one. And then weather. We'll get to weather here in a second. So first things first, Druid Domain. I love this so much. One of my favorite features in the entire game. It just feels so Druid-like. You can spend 1 action point and 1 mana point to create your own Druid Domain. You can literally create squares on the ground and send them out and create. Actually, let me show you. Here's a great little grid example, right? D is the Druid, and you can shoot out 8 spaces worth of grove, and you can you literally go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can just spread your grove and create nature. Imagine the Druid slamming his staff into the ground, lifting his hand. Plant life starts to just grow on the grounds out in front of you, creating a Druid Domain. I almost forgot, Druid Grove spaces. You are able to cast spells as if you were standing from your Druid Grove. So your Druid Grove is literally an extension of yourself, which lets Druids be able to cast spells a little different. You can cast them from your Druid Domains, and as you start to put more Druid Domains out in the battlefield, or where you choose to spread it, it's dangerous for the enemies. Now, what can you do with this domain? I'm glad you asked. Domain spaces are difficult terrain, first of all. So you are creating difficult terrain, which is a small benefit of this thing. You're also able to do 2 things in there. Is Nature's Grass, to be able to move creatures. Like if you have an object, you can hold out a healing potion, and your vines literally can grab it and move it like a conveyor belt across your own Nature's Grove that you just created. You can also move your own allies and be able to help the vines can like pick up and help move your allies and shuttle them across places, or enemies can actually, the vines can grab and hold on to them. Second thing you can do is wild growth. You can heal people inside of your grove. People can run to your grove for healing, and you can cast magic and heal them through your grove. So there's nature, check. What about animals? We have wild form. Now, wild form, this is DC20's version of wild form, and I think we've done it right. This is going to be a very basic overview, but the entire thing is here. It is a very big feature. I do admit that fully. So yes, there's going to be support for the Druids in the core rules about different little stat blocks and different little example things for the different creatures you can turn into, because there is a lot of flexibility here, and I want to support the new players as far as not getting too intimidated by this. But basically, you have a true form, which is yourself, and a wild form, which is whatever sort of beast form that you're taking on, right? It has a duration of an hour, and you can do 2 forms. So yes, you can shift back and forth between creatures like this, right? So let's say you have a squirrel form and a bear form, right? So you can shift into a little squirrel, scurry up a tree, jump off the tree, turn into a bear, land on somebody, start mauling them, right? Equipment transforms with you, just all the standard stuff, and then there's a stat block, which I'm going to show right here at the bottom. You have a stat block, and a lot of the stuff shares the same stats as you. Now your might and agility become 1, and your speed is 5. And there's a bunch of things that are just flat out baseline, like this is the stat block, that's it. So what, you're telling me I shift into a squirrel and I shift into a bear and they have the same stat block? Yes, at first. So that would be a very weak bear and a very strong squirrel if you were to have the exact same stat block. But the cool part here is the traits. You don't benefit from features and traits of other things like that. But what you do benefit from are 3 traits that you get to spend on beast traits or wild form traits, which I'll get into. So you transform it. Whenever you say, I'm going to transform into a blank, this is the stat block every single time. very simple. But you get 3 trait points to spend on whatever you want. And these points is what turns this bland neutral bear into an actual bear, or a regular old squirrel into a scurrying squirrel with climb speed. So these traits right here let you increase your size, let you increase your health, let you increase defense, resistance, skillful, more skills and stuff like that, swiftness, how quick you are. Maybe you just want to be a really fast squirrel. There you go. Then if you go over to the Beastborn ancestry, these are also options for you to pick from as well. Dark vision, echolocation if you want to be like a bat or some type of thing. Climbing speed, there's the squirrel. So I'm squirrel. If I want to shift into a squirrel, I got 3 points. I'm spending 1 on climbing speed. I'm probably going to spend the other 2 points on speed. There we go. So I have a very fast climb speed squirrel. And that's how fast I could just make a squirrel, by the way. Like, I don't have to go looking for stat blocks and looking for all these things. So it might feel intimidating with how this wild form is set up, that you have all these different options. But I think that's a better way to handle it than having to go through different, look for different stat blocks all over the place. We have a standardized stat block, and then you are able to go get other features. And we just made a squirrel like that. And for the bear, let's keep going. Maybe you want to climb speed for the bear. Maybe it's a freaking panda bear and it climbs trees and stuff. I don't know. You have all these options of flying bear. Ooh, there we go. Tough. We got powerful build. We have tough, thick skin. We have all these different things you can start to, oh yeah, more health. Or if we go back to the traits over here, maybe if I want to do a bear, these are repeatable traits that you can get that usually you can't repeat traits like this, is let's say I just want to spend all 3 traits on health for the bear and I just want to have a really healthy bear. Done. Or I really just want to be a really large bear, so I spend 2 points on size and 1 point on health. Now again, you're just a level 1 druid, so that you're not going to be able to go crazy and do all this type of stuff, right? But as you level, as you're able to spend more mana on this feature, you get more and more traits. And the other cool thing that I didn't want y'all to overlook here with this druid's feature is you are still able to cast and use druid class features while shapeshifted. So yes, while you're shapeshifted into these animals, you can still use that Nature's Druid's Grove that we talked about a second ago. And you're also going to be able to use these level 2 features. At level 2, you get Nature's Veil and Nature's Rest. Nature's Rest is very simple. It just helps allies and yourself. Whenever you rest in nature or in your druid's domain, you get you a little bit more rest points back. You get a little bit more healing, recovery, all that kind of stuff. But then there's Nature's Veil, which is a really exciting one as well. And like I said, while you are in your wild form, you can use Nature's Veil and you can use your druid domain. So keep that in mind. It's really cool connection as you are still a druid, animals, nature in one. This is your weather. This is your weather feature. You use 2 action points, 1 mana point, and you change the weather for 10 minutes in a 5-space sphere centered on yourself. So you start weather where you're at right there. Now you can move, the weather stays in the same spot, and you can choose one of these effects. You can clear the area out entirely and illuminate it, helping with awareness checks, possibly for something you're looking for in that area. Elements, you can change that. You can make it really hot. You can make that area really hot, and then all creatures in that area are vulnerable 1 to fire damage, meaning they take 1 more damage from all fire damage. Maybe you supercharge the area with lightning, and there's it's like a crackling with energy, and now people are vulnerable 1 to lightning damage. Ooh, interesting. Or maybe you make it really cold, and now they're vulnerable 1 to cold damage. Or you could say that it's raining. You can describe it however you want. You can say it's raining, and now because of all the rain, now they're vulnerable 1 to lightning. Uh-oh. Obscures the area with whatever sort of thing you want to describe. Again, snow, sand, fog, whatever you want, and it obscures the area and makes it really hard to see. And then windy buffets the area, blowing out fires and causing ranged attacks to be a disadvantage. And now it brings us to the Bard. The Bard is something that I really wanted to knock out of the park. I think it's such an important class. I just love it. But one thing I don't love about Bards is how much of a bad rap they've gotten in the tabletop roleplay community and certain things, and how much certain game masters don't like them, players are intimidated by them, or it just feels weird or hokey. And I think in general, too much flavor has been put on the music, their literal like musicality, musical instrument type of situation. Bards are more than that. The artistry that bards perform is not just playing a musical instrument. Sure, that's one option. They can also sing, which is kind of adjacent, but still different. In fact, we'll go straight to the bard to show you what I'm talking about here. Bards have a repertoire of artistic expression that manifests as spells. Musical bards sing songs of specific instruments or words to cast spells. Dancing bards perform particular dance moves and represent different spells. And it accentuates certain move, a different spell happens. Storyteller bards initiate combat by starting to tell a story, and then someone's like, how cool is that for you to start a combat and the bard just starts talking and starts telling a story, narrating what happens as magic flows out of their mouth. Poetry bards, rap battle bards, ribbon dancer bards, battle dancer, you know those Samoan dances where they do all the that's super cool and powerful. You have artistic expression. Maybe they paint midair, and as they paint midair, it takes form of something, turns into magic, and flies across the battlefield. You get the idea. Bards can be cool. Think outside the box. Here we go. So bards have a little bit more skill points than usual. They get 2 skill points at level 1. Some people forget this. Some people miss it. They get 2 skill points when you normally would get none at this. This is addition to the skill points you get to start the game off with. In mind, keep that in mind as well. But bards now start to work a little bit differently with their spell list. You learn spells, but it's extremely restrictive. But stay with me for one of their first level class features. So the bard spell list, they can choose any spell with a charm tag, and that could also open up as we kind of expand things with the spell update. Spell update's coming in beta 0.10. But they only get access to conjuration, divination, enchantment, illusion, and restoration. That's it. And they don't get to choose them at all, which does feel kind of bad. But again, stay with me. So at level 1, they get Bardic Performance. This is iconic. And if you're familiar with monks and like fighting stances and being able to do different things in different fighting stances, this is like a magical performance version of that. The bard starts to perform. They start to tell a story. They start to dance. They start to make a song, whatever they're doing. And they can change the song they play to give different magical effects. A 10-space aura of magic emanates from them, and they start to perform. They can give their allies a battle ballad, which is a +1 damage against one creature of their choice that they make on each of their turns while they have this buff. You get +1 speed, +1 temporary hit points, advantage on certain conditions. Oh yeah, the bard can choose to change the performance. Maybe they start off in some sort of battle mode and they start to sing the battle song and everything's going, and now they want to, time to get out of here, guys, and they switch songs or switch performances to a fast one. Let's go. Absolutely love the flavor of it. There you go. Font of Inspiration. This is your helping bard. This is being able to spread that inspiration to your allies. You can now increase the range of your help action to 10 spaces. Usually for the attack action, you have to be within 1 space of your ally or within 1 space of an enemy target. Now it opens that up to 10 spaces. And you can take help as a reaction, which is crazy, and the bards are only ones to be able to do this at level 1. And then here's the remarkable repertoire, which is the thing that I just said, like, oops, stay with me, is you get to learn any 2 spells from any spell list, provided one of them is a cantrip. So you get 1 cantrip, 1 spell from any spell list in the game. So that is a very restrictive bard at first to then any spell in the game. This lets you now be able to pick up that spell that really lets you be able to play that bard in the way that you want to. You want to be able to cast Fireball Bard? Go ahead. But it goes one step farther than this, the mechanics and flavor. Once again, are you a visual bard? Or are you an auditory bard? Obviously, if you're a singing bard, auditory, music's auditory. And then visual, are you dancing? Are you there? You can choose, and you can ignore either a somatic or verbal component depending on which one you chose. A little bit of combat value, lots of flavor value, you get the idea. And then the last 2 things bards get are Inspiring Rest and Counter Charm. This one's actually a good counter charm though. Whenever a creature you see fails a save against being charmed, taunted, intimidated, rattled, or frightened, they are shaken in some way, you can spend an action as a reaction to attempt to counter the effect. You make a spell check against the save DC of the opposing creature's contested check, whatever they're doing. You insert yourself in there with a spell check and try and counter it. Super cool. And then you have Inspiring Rest, such a bard thing. Gather around, inspiring, put on some sort of performance, give a speech, whatever you want to do, however you want to describe it, and then everybody around you gets temporary hit points. So now to my example earlier to finish the whole thing in the big picture is that Druid's casting a fireball. Well, the Druid's fireball might shoot out of a little small volcano that a little baby volcano that he nature's groved out of the ground to shoot right there, and fire or pools together and shoots from his Druid domain, not even themselves, right? And then the bard might not even have fireball. They're all over the battlefield, they're playing music and stuff, shooting spells out, helping allies, doing all this stuff, inspiring people, and then, oh wait, maybe that bard did take fireball and they actually can cast fireball. So I hope that paints the picture, pun intended with ending on the bard, of every single spellcaster in DC20 and giving them different mechanics to be able to cast spells differently, even if they're casting the same dang spell. And if any of this has interested you, if like, oh, this is some interesting mechanics, interesting design philosophy, interesting whatever. I have a ton of videos on this at this point now, and there's a lot more to come. There's another channel, DC20 YouTube channel, that's going to be down in the description as well, and the Kickstarter. is 1 week away. Absolutely crazy. If you're even thinking about being interested in this, jump on the Kickstarter, back it as soon as you can, as early as you can, because all of that, everything they can go into June 4th at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. The bigger and better it does, the more people I'll be able to help bring on to help me do this thing and help push it even farther. And to all of you who have been here for as long as you have, thank you for even having this be possible. There was a genuine time where it was not, didn't know if I was going to be able to keep making this game and be able to see the classes be in such a good spot where they're at. This is a rework. The classes were really fun before, but they are even better now. And it's been so cool and such a blessing to see this game be able to be supported enough for it to have enough love poured into it by not just myself, but my team as well, and the community as well, and all the feedback that I've listened to you guys for, to have this game be is even in an even better spot now. So truly thank you. Stay creative. Think outside the box. Peace.